Are you ready to transform your normal e-commerce business into one that experiences exponential growth year after year using online advertising? If so, this show is for you. Me and my guests will show you how you too can grow your e-commerce business to 7 or even 8 figures so you can go on more luxurious vacations, spoil yourself and your family, say yes to more opportunities, and become financially free so you never have to worry about money again. Welcome to the E-commerce Performance Marketing Show. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the E-com Performance Marketing Show. And I have a true legend in online business. He's been doing this since 2004. He has been really mastering multiple disciplines of online business. But what he really specializes in today is email marketing, which is probably the most neglected channel of every business on average. Most people focus so much on customer acquisition that they really don't master what email marketing can do for their business. And when email marketing is done correctly, you could literally generate about 50% of your monthly revenues or more from email. And John's truly a master at this. He's got a specific, unique methodology he's going to tell you all about that can really make a massive impact on your e-com business. So I'm super excited to have him here on the show. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. It's a privilege to be here.
Yeah, it's my honor, man. It's my honor. I'd love if you could just tell the audience a bit about, just how you got started and some of your early stumbles along the way. This way people can, relate to you, because you and I, you've been doing this for much longer than me. I've been doing this since 2013, early 2013, but you've been doing this since 2004. That's crazy. And the thing is that a lot of people out there, they're watching or listening to the show, they might be struggling. And, that's why I always love to start with maybe some of the struggles you had early on, so this way people can really relate to you.
Sure. Well, my journey started a long time ago, so I'm a bit of a veteran, if you call it that. My journey started in 2004, and you probably remember this saying is, you build it and they will come. Well, the customers didn't come, so I kind of had to work everything out the hard way, investing a lot of money as well, because dropship wasn't really a thing back then. You had to have your own warehouse, you had to import all your different products and that kind of thing. So it started off really slow for me. My first e-com store, which happened to be in a games, gifts, and big boys toys. That was my thing back then. And I struggled for the first few years, but I remember that one of the first things I started doing, I actually did email list rentals. And that's how I managed to get a lot of new customers. But it wasn't until 2009 that I really started to leverage email marketing. So that's kind of my, how I kind of got around to learning the traffic thing, SEO, then get into paid traffic. And then finally it was like, okay, so why do I not make as much money as I know I can? What's the stumbling block? And I came back to email marketing. And the biggest thing that we see, and even today, is people do not work on retention, and how they go to all this trouble of acquiring customers. They've done all this education, they've bought all the courses, the Facebook or Google or YouTube, and they get quite good at acquisition, and then they keep trying to get cheaper customers, or they keep trying to scale the customers, through acquisition, when the secret is it's getting past what we call the one and done customers. Okay. Now you're always going to have customers who buy and then they're going to go somewhere else. That's just part of the overall competition and things. People will always go and price shop. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you can put a retention strategy in place, then you'll stop that, bucket from leaking as much. Okay. And if you can then really get to a point of, building a strong relationship, then you start to build a brand. And I'm not talking a brand in terms of, Coca-Cola and their name and stuff like that, but a brand in terms of you've built a relationship, you've built trust. And if you can do that, then you'll get a portion of those one and dones to buy again. And here's the thing, the profit in this type of business is on the second and third and fourth, etc., of repeat customers. That's how you make this business profitable, and that's how you can scale to afford more traffic on the front end. So it's a really simplistic type of approach there,
No,
but it kind of gives you a good overview, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely spot on. I mean, if you can really leverage, like you said, a good retention strategy using email marketing and keep your customers coming back and purchasing several times, in the customer journey, that's going to go back to, your ad spend. That's going to go back to the ROI you're generating from your ad spend. That's why it's a key part of my methodology, the ARM5 formula, is leveraging email marketing. Now, I know you've got a very unique methodology yourself. Do you want to explain to the audience what that is?
Yeah, we have a kind of, we call it the relevancy protocol. And the relevancy protocol is kind of the engine to the whole system. What we have here is, interconnected components or parts within a system. Okay, so if you really want to, work on the retention, put a retention engine in, okay, it really comes down to being relevant. There's no point sending messages or trying to conversate with people, conversate with your customers, if you're not going to give them relevant information. The more relevant the information, the better. So think of it this way: the relevancy protocol is the right message. Okay, right message is the conversations that you're having, right? So in conversations, we're talking about really, the conversation is about building trust. The sooner you can build trust, the sooner you build a longer standing relationship. So that would include things like, awareness. Once you get past the awareness, you build rapport. We're talking about then working with empathy. You're actually understanding your customers, actually talking to them in the right way so that you get their level of interest. They start raising their hand, okay? Then comes engagement. So now that you've got their interest, how can you keep that continual engagement? Because if you've got that continual engagement, you have their attention and you've earned the attention, right? And then from there, it's about action. You've got the conversation, you've got to get them to do something. There has to be a point, there has to be a call to action. So the first part is the right message. That really comes down to having those right conversations. The second part is the right person. Okay, to be relevant, you have to be talking to the right person with the right message, right? The right conversation. And that comes down to segmentation. So many people have, know what segmentation is, but segmentation is really data. Okay, you've got to understand the demographics. You've got to understand the transactional stuff that goes on. You've got to understand the behavioral elements, and you've got to understand the psychographics. Okay, because what it leads to is you understanding who buys, what they buy, how they buy, and why they buy. And why they buy is the important one, okay? Because then you can start thinking, well, how can I then deliver these conversations to the right person, segments? Then the timing. So that's the third part of the relevancy program, the right timing. So you have to think, well, what does that really mean? Well, recency. When did they first interact with you? What message were they sent? And there's a frequency. How many messages are you sending? Okay. And then there's the latency between their actions. So think of it in behavior. If they came and checked out your store, how long do you really leave it then to follow up in some way with some type of conversation? Okay. The whole timing aspect, really is around the RFM model. So if you know that as recency, frequency, and monetization, right?
Yep.
But behind it,
80/20 sales and marketing.
Yeah. But behind it is what we call the customer lifecycle grid. Okay. So this is like your segments being who's most active, where are they being active, who's at risk, who's about to churn. So this is when latency between communication, and between purchases and all those kinds of things really come down to this timing. So the right time is extremely important within the relevancy protocol.
Yep.
The last part is the right offer. Okay, this is all about conversion. The information has to be relevant, but the offer has to be relevant too, right? And then it goes into personalization, because you can't just like, blast the whole list, thinking they're going to buy this one thing. You have to go around this whole circle of getting that right messaging working to the right segment at the right time with the most relevant offer. Okay. And if you can do that, so it's kind of an email funnel, if you want to look at it that way. But then you could have hundreds of these email funnels, okay, all playing as part of this relevancy protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you earn the sale, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially how it works. So there's a whole system behind it, that we could get into. It would probably take me more than our time together here today, but I'm going to share as much as I can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
If you put this in, if you put this type of thing in, you have a much higher probability of success. Essentially what this system is doing is it's like AI in a way. It's going to refine over time. And as you learn more from the data, it gets better with age, okay? So there's a reason to get old, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, that's a funny metaphor to email marketing, but when you get older, you get wiser, and the thing is, you actually in a way feel younger, even though your body doesn't sometimes, but your brain is younger. That's where the whole Benjamin Button, whole story comes from as well. But I love that metaphor that you just used there. Now, what are some like actionable steps that people can take that would allow them to really see an impact from their email marketing and impact their retention, based on your methodology? This way the audience listening or watching this can take action on a few maybe strategies or tactics that can yield immediate results.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the biggest thing is, we're talking about, a lot of people have automation in place, where they have like site and abandonment cart, abandonment recovery going on, which is all great to have. But one thing they don't do is they don't build a real relationship. So in order to build a relationship, there's a few things you've got to have in place. The first thing is you really have to understand who you're talking to, okay? Who your audience really is, who your customers are, okay? Essentially, he who knows his customer the most wins with email marketing. So that's what you got to think of. So you have to spend a little bit of time maybe looking at, the replies you're getting, or looking at the feedback you're getting, if you have a feedback loop, and really even going to the trouble of phoning your customers and asking some, specific questions about, hey, why did you buy from us today? What was it you liked? What was it you disliked? Really trying to understand who they are is the biggest thing, so who your audience is. Once you understand that, then you can start to put together an avatar, a persona, as we call it, because people buy from people, okay? They don't buy the product, they buy from people, and they trust people. So this is where you have to understand who they are, and you build your persona. We call it a brand voice, okay? So you imagine, right? What happens when you phone your sister? What happens when you phone your mother? You have a one-on-one conversation. What happens when you go and meet your best friend in a bar? You sit down and have a one-on-one conversation. This is what you have to do with your email. So working out who your brand voice is of your own personality and who you're speaking to goes a long way of then actually writing. And if you can write in a conversation, the back and forth, and think of it that way, that's how you then construct conversational type of email, to send out. Mm-hmm. So first one, know your audience enough that you can then build your brand voice and then start having conversations. And we all know how to conversate. We all know how to like catch up with friends or phone our mom, but you've got to have that one-on-one. So once you know who the audience is, once you understand the persona, then start to test having these one-on-one conversations. And that's a big one that people get wrong. They just put stuff together and blast it out there, not really understanding who they're talking to and who the personality is to kind of, try and
Yeah.
have the conversation.
No, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And just to add to, the value you're providing here, I mean, just doing surveys, like you said, asking questions right after someone buys, but also just doing surveys to your customers on a consistent basis. This way you can constantly
Correct.
add to your data, persona, your avatar that you're building and understanding, over time, especially as your business gets more and more mature and you get more and more customers. You definitely want to have that as a part of your marketing process on a consistent basis, so you're constantly learning about your customers and applying, that data to a persona, to an avatar. Like you said, this way you really deeply understand who it is that you are serving, and you could speak to them in your email marketing because you understand them so well, to your point. So I love that.
Correct. And that's the biggest thing, because, some people might say, oh, can you do my email marketing for me? And this is kind of my persona. But really, it's your relationship and the person you are and how you communicate that they're bonding with. This is where it all starts, right? So you have to work that out. So that's number one. The second one is being consistent. If you're going to send 3 emails a week, send 3 emails a week. You're kind of training your audience that, an email is going to arrive at this time and this day. It's when you have inconsistent results, then you're going to get, inconsistent messaging, you're going to get inconsistent results. That's what I meant there. So you have to be consistent. So many people try this and they give up soon after, simply because they didn't get the results they wanted. The thing is, you have to persevere. You have to work out the best conversations to have, best conversations to get that initial engagement. Think about it. What is the conversation that's going on in the head of your customer? Okay. If you can enter that conversation, right, they're going to reply. Okay. So we tend to always have replies in ours, and you'll see this a lot in other people's emails. Will say, hey, if this resonates, you hit reply. We have what we call a Saturday email. And a Saturday email is simply that, what are you getting up to on the weekend? This is what we're doing this weekend, right? And this is what we have planned. And it's about sharing your personality, sharing what you're up to, all geared to build that relationship and get replies. And that helps for 2 reasons. One, it's great to get replies from these people and then resonate so much they have to tell you what's going on their weekend. That's when you know that you're really getting through to your audience. The second thing, it helps your deliverability. If you get people replying, it helps, on your sending and your score with the internet, email service providers.
Yeah. No,
So that's another reason to do it.
Yeah,
so that's another one, is be consistent. And the third one is really.
Can I
add
something to that, John, real quick?
Yeah, go.
I just love what you're saying. I just want to really make sure that the audience really gets that lesson. Whatever the channel is you're focus on, whether it's ads, whether it's emails, you got to be committed to it. It can't just be something you try. You have to be like, you know what, we're going to do email marketing, we're going to send 3 emails a week, and we're going to stick to it, for 30 days, 90 days, a year. You keep stretching it along, but you got to be super committed to it. You can't just approach it with a half-assed approach where you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You got to be 100% in with whatever channel or whatever initiative that you're focused on to grow your e-com business. And I just want to really hit that point home, because I've heard and I've seen, different e-com businesses and owners vent basically about, oh, I tried this, didn't work. I tried this, didn't work. Well, you weren't committed. You tried it, but you weren't committed. If you were committed and you stuck with it, you would constantly get better and better and better, and then you would see results. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, just because that was just such a huge point you made.
And this, email marketing, writing your emails, it's a skill, okay? And the more you do it, it's like the other day there, my son, he tried to skip. He got to skipping rope, and he did 1 or 2. And next day he got 5, and the next day he was on 10. The next day he was doing the crossing and everything. It's about repetitive stuff, right? It's no different. Anyone can learn this. The biggest way to look at it is you're looking to have conversations with people. That's it. Don't expect anything in return. Have great conversations. Yeah. and then results will happen. But you have to be consistent with it. You have to practice, and you're essentially dialing it in, really.
Yep.
And that's the best way to look at it. So that's the second thing, being consistent. And the third thing really is, don't expect to get an amazing return from day one. Okay. There's only one metric that I really care about, and that is, how much revenue we make from email. Okay. So a lot of people get fixated on different metrics like open rates and click rates. The one for me is revenue. Okay. And that's the bottom line. If, however, you do have poor open rates, then obviously it's a metric you need to care about if you have a poor click rate. But I can tell you now, we've had some of our email open rates be like 15 or 18 or 20%. And yes, some people out there are getting 55%, 70%. But it comes down to, well, what are you making? So we like to use a metric of, we send 1,000 emails. How much do we make from 1,000 emails? And that gives us a good gauge then that when we go out, say we test something, then we go out to the bigger audience, what we're likely to make, okay? So if you're getting 20% plus open rates, then you're pretty good. That's the average. And if you're getting about a 0.1% click rate, then good too. But then you got to see how much you're making. And I'll tell you why. It's not about doing these conversation emails to essentially make as much money as you can. It's about getting the connection with the audience. Like the Saturday emails, they're not really designed to sell. But what happens is you build the rapport, you build the trust. And then when you do a proper promotional campaign, you then make way more money. Yep. Because people are too busy trying to make money all the time rather than make the relationship. And if you can do both over time, so you're not coming across like a sleazy salesman, you will get way better results. So if we look at the results, say, of someone who does direct response and builds lists, you may get $50 to $100 per 1,000 sends. Which is not bad, right? But the problem is it will never get any better because you're just hammering your list all the time. Where a better approach is to try and have a conversation, build the trust, and then start building that up. Because it's not about a big list, it's about a responsive list. Okay. And responsive lists with trust in the relationship outperform any big list. And I'll tell you a little example. I was working with a company last year. They had 2 million people on their list. And all they'd done for 2 years was promotion, sell. Guess what happened? It died. They'd be lucky if they made $300 by sending out, millions of emails a month. So they might make 15, 20 grand a month from the emails, but it's not too bad. But when you consider how big the list is,
should be much more.
Turn it to another client of ours who has a list of 15,000. You think a 2 million list to 15,000, they're going to beat them all day long. No, we make way more money at this small list because this list has been built through conversations. Mm-hmm. And the list has the trust. We have the relationship. And when we do a promotion, we get anywhere between 50 to 150,000 per month from a tiny list. Mm-hmm. So that's the big takeaway here is look at your metrics, don't get put off, try and build those conversations up, and then eventually you'll work out what's working, and then you can see the return that you can get. Yeah. Those that know their customer the most will win. So if you have company A and they just want to make as much money as their list as possible, it's going to die out pretty soon. Maybe 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. As opposed to someone looking after a list where they can rely on it, where it's robust, reliable, and repeatable. Yep. And that's what you've now created your own happy customer factory, which you can then, make way more revenue from, and then will help you be able to scale on your front end acquisition. Mm-hmm. you know. So that's the third one I really wanted to kind of go over there.
That was awesome. Yeah, no, great. That was great. Well, John, I want to be really respectful of your time. So with that said, let's transition into the last part of the interview. And this is kind of just a fun way to wrap it up. This is our bonus round here on the ecom Performance Marketing Show. So I ask you 4 different questions, and you have to answer each question with only one word.
Give it my best shot. I like to talk, so.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So here we go. What caused your biggest ecom success today?
Email. Has to be email.
Yeah, it definitely has to be. What advice do you have for other ecom business owners?
Focus.
Focus. How would you describe yourself?
Old but a legend.
All hyphenated, right? One word. That's fine. It works. It's just a fun way to wrap up the episode. And then, what do you see in your future?
What I see in my future. I think, reliability. This whole system. One thing it's really produced is reliable. It's something where we can go back to time and time again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just email in general too, which I'm glad that you're on the show to talk about, the value of email, because it could have such a massive impact, on ecom businesses when they have a commitment to email and they have a good methodology and they have a good process in place. So I would say, that's a great way to wrap up the episode here. So how can someone who is interested in finding out more about you, your company, maybe even working with your company and really getting your expertise on their business, how can someone do that?
Yeah, but they can reach out to me on Facebook. That's probably the best way. If they want to learn more about email in general, they can join. I've got a free group I've just started out, where people have lots of questions, where we share lots of valuable information. It's called Email Marketing, Why Email Works.
Nice. Okay. Sounds good. I'll definitely make sure that there's links, guys, below the episode. So whether you're going to YouTube or you're going to our blog and you see this episode, it'll be right there on the page. So definitely check it out. So follow John. John's a legend. He's been doing this for 17 years just about. So, I mean, he's a guy that definitely knows his stuff. He's been doing this for a very long time. He's had incredible impacts on other companies that he has served and also his own companies as well. So you definitely need to follow John. He's a legend in the space, which is why I brought him on the show. Thank you so much, John, for being on the show. I appreciate it, man.
It's been a privilege. I've enjoyed our time together.
Awesome, man. Well, have a great day, okay?
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for tuning into the e-commerce performance marketing show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment with a timestamp of your favorite part and share it with a friend. Until our next episode, here's to you and the success of your e-commerce business.